Let's be honest. When most of us think of Australia, we picture incredible beaches, kangaroos, maybe the Sydney Opera House. But lately, another image has been seared into our minds, a continent ablaze. So we're going to dig into the data to figure out if these massive, devastating fires are just a tragic blip on the radar, or if they're the beginning of a terrifying new normal. You remember this, right? It's an image that's just impossible to forget. The 2019 to 2020 fire season, now grimly called Black Summer, was on another level. A report from CSIRO confirms it scorched over 24 million hectares. To put that in perspective, that is an area larger than the entire United Kingdom. The smoke was so thick it choked major cities. It really felt apocalyptic. And that's really the core question we're tackling here. Was Black Summer just a freak event, a once-in-a-generation disaster? Or was it a massive, flashing warning sign that something has fundamentally changed in Australia's climate? Well, the data has a story to tell, and we're going to listen. Okay, so first, we really have to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of the damage. Let's look at the hard numbers from Black Summer, because they really set the stage for everything else we're about to cover. 33 people. That's how many died as a direct result of the flames. But, the hidden cost was even worse. Research from Australia's National Science Agency, the CSIRO, estimates that nearly 450 more people died from smoke inhalation, as that toxic haze just sat over towns and cities for weeks and weeks. So, how do we prove this wasn't just an anomaly? Well, the only way to do that is to zoom out and look at the big picture, the long-term trends. Let's see what decades of records tell us about what's really going on. All right, now this is where things get really wild. A major analysis by the CSIRO looked at satellite data from 1988 all the way up to 2001, and then compared it to the period from 2002 onwards. The result? The average amount of forest that burns each year in Australia has skyrocketed by 800%. That's not a small change, that is a seismic shift. And this timeline just makes it so clear. You see, for most of the 20th century, a mega fire year, that's a year when over 1 million hectares of forest burns, was incredibly rare. In fact, 1939 was the only one. But just as that CSIRO study showed, look at what's happened since 2002. We've had 3 of them. All these extreme fire years are clustered in our modern century. That's the new reality. And it's not just that the fires are bigger, it's when they're burning. The old idea of a fire season is pretty much out the window. According to that same CSIRO data, since 2001, the area burned by fires in the winter has gone up by 400%. And the area burned in autumn, that's jumped by 200%. The fire season is getting dangerously, unstoppably long. And this is absolutely crucial. This isn't just an Australian story. A huge global study out of the University of Tasmania crunched 21 years of satellite data from all over the world. What did they find? Extreme bushfires everywhere have more than doubled in how often they happen and how intense they are in just the last 2 decades. And they say it's directly tied to our changing climate. Right. So we've laid out what is happening. We see the trend. Now, let's get into the science of why. What's the engine driving these bigger, badder fires? Okay, so to understand the why, you first have to know about this thing called the Forest Fire Danger Index, or FFDI. Think of it as the official rating system for fire risk. It's not about how many trees or bushes there are to burn, it's purely about the weather conditions, how hot, how dry, how windy it is, which all determines how dangerous a fire could be. And guess what? The trend here is crystal clear. The State of the Climate 2024 report, put out by both the CSIRO and the Bureau of Meteorology, confirms it. We are seeing more and more days with those high or severe fire danger ratings, especially across the south and east of the country. And this is where it all connects. The CSIRO scientists did this really powerful analysis. They found a direct, undeniable link for every single extra day that gets a severe fire danger rating. The amount of land that burns goes up by 300 to 500%. It's a direct cause and effect. So here's the bottom line, the number that really says it all. After looking at every possible factor you can think of, the CSIRO concluded that the increasingly severe fire weather, which is being driven by climate change, accounts for 75% of the change in how much forest burns each year. It is, by a massive margin, the main culprit. So this hotter, drier, windier weather isn't just making fires bigger. It's leading to something else. Something that sounds like it's straight out of a disaster movie. Fires that are so intense, they literally create their own weather. Yeah, it's a mouthful, pyrocumulonimbus clouds, but you can just think of them as fire thunderstorms. And as the Bureau of Meteorology explains, these aren't normal storms that just happen to pass over a fire. No, these are storms created by the fire itself. So how on earth does that even happen? Well, think of the massive heat from a megafire like a giant engine. It pushes air and smoke upwards with incredible force. As that column of smoke punches high up into the atmosphere, it cools, moisture condenses into a cloud, and that process releases even more energy, which supercharges the whole thing. And boom, you get a full-blown thunderstorm, born from a fire. And this is where the truly terrifying feedback loop kicks in. These fire-made storms can create their own lightning. The Bureau of Meteorology actually recorded an instance during the Black Saturday fires where lightning from one of these storms started a brand new fire over 100 kilometers away from the original blaze. A fire starting another fire 100 kilometers away? The behavior of these storms is just incredibly violent and unpredictable. They can shoot out embers that start new fires 30 kilometers away. They create these savage downbursts of wind that can change a fire's direction in an instant. And in the most extreme cases, like the fires in Canberra back in 2003, they can even spawn firenadoes. Yes, that is a real thing. So after seeing all this data and looking at the science, what's next? What does the future actually hold? Well, the Big State of the Climate 2024 report gives us the clearest and, frankly, the most sobering picture. The projections are pretty blunt. All the trends we've just been talking about, they're set to continue and in many cases get worse. Australia is looking at more extreme heat, even longer fire seasons in the south and east, and, this might sound weird, we'll also see more intense but short, heavy downpours of rain. And this quote from Professor Matt England, wow, it just puts everything into chilling perspective. He's saying that the horror of Black Summer could become just a normal summer if the planet warms by 3 degrees Celsius. It's almost impossible to imagine what an extreme summer would look like then. So there you have it. The evidence is pretty overwhelming. The data shows us the trend, the science explains the reason why. Those catastrophic fires we've seen are not a fluke. They're part of a new, far more dangerous reality that's being driven by a warming climate. And that leaves us all with the biggest question of all. Knowing what we know now, how are we going to live with it?